UFC Vegas 96 has a pretty good main event in Gerald Cannonier versus Caio Borralho. It's certainly going to affect the rankings and potentially could affect the next title shot. But it feels like a card that was put together just a few weeks ago. This wasn't even on the UFC's calendar when they announced this main event. We're going to break down 10 fights, but there's going to be an 11th added later in the week when the Ultimate Fighter finale airs. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks, and I'm going to break down the entire UFC Vegas 96 fight card, giving you my picks, predictions, and bets. Before we talk about UFC Vegas 96, let's spend 20 seconds and talk about UFC 305. Overall, this was a decent card. We had a whole bunch of undercard fights that were supposed to be bangers that didn't end up being. We had a minus 1,500 favorite that lost a round on the judges' scorecards, but the main event delivered. Ultimately, Dricus du Plessis was able to get it done, and he did it convincingly, so there are no more arguments going forward who won that fight. And if you were about to say, well, Dricus was going to lose a decision, no, he wasn't. Go check out the scorecard. They had him up 2-1. That was a great fight. It was razor thin. We were all on the edge of our seats, and I absolutely loved it. Izzy looked phenomenal for a guy coming off a year away, and he's 35 years old. But if you do want a more in-depth breakdown, I filmed a full recap to that entire card immediately following the event. It is this Home Alone face thumbnail, and it is on the channel right now. I've been talking about the wild growth, and I've been thanking every single one of you for subscribing, for watching the videos. Our numbers have been insane. They've been insane. In a rolling 30 days, we almost crossed the 500,000 view mark, and that is nuts. But with the growth comes new eyes, new people, all sorts of different levels of understanding of sports bettings and the terms and everything that we use. I've gotten more questions this week of what's a unit? How does this work? How does that work? Than weeks prior, and that's with the new eyes. As sports betting becomes legal in more and more states, and as more and more people find us on YouTube, we're going to get different audiences. And I absolutely love that, and thank you for being here. So I did want to clarify a few things. Last night at UFC 305, Jacob and I had a phenomenal night. We are both up money. We both did very, very well. In my recap video, every single week, I will share the bets, every single bet that I placed, good or bad. This week, I shared this screenshot. This is every single bet I placed. I only lost 2, and you can see the 0 on the my return side. But what a couple of people didn't understand is what my return means. So if we look at the very first bet on the top, that's Dricus du Plessis. I put a half a unit on him at plus 120. I then put another bet on him at plus 110. And people say, wait a minute, a half of a unit at plus 120 doesn't return 1.1. And the answer is yes, it does. Of course it does. If I give you $50, you're going to give me 110 back. That's what return means. The people who were complaining about that are likely thinking profit. Of course, there's not profit of 1.1 units. You have to subtract the half a unit you put out. And that's what this slide is. This slide is every single bet that was placed last night from Jacob or myself. If we look at that exact same bet, a half a unit out on Dricus du Plessis at plus 120, returned 1.1 units, but the total, the net profit was 0.6 units. That's how that math works. So for people that didn't fully understand that, weren't getting the math, that's what that is. The net profit of last night for me was 2.65 units. For Jacob was 1.55 units. So if we run through the math of last night, which was a successful card for us, we avoided the landmines, was 14.95 units out. That's every single bet both Jacob and I placed. 19.16 back, which is a net profit of 4.21 and a 28% ROI. And before you say, bro, I lost money, you said Gamrot was going to win and Urseg was going to win. Couple of things to that point. Picks are not bets. Picks are not bets. And if you look at my bets, I actually bet on Dan Hooker. And I was very clear in every single breakdown I did on this channel. Gamrot probably wins because of the wrestling, but he is chinny as hell. And I think Dan Hooker can certainly win one round, if not win the whole fight. And that's the bet that I placed on him. Picks and bets are not the same. If you are a premium member, there are multiple places on the website where you can see all of the content. We have a full chart of the picks, my picks, Jacob's picks, the artificial intelligence, and Artem. Then we have a page called Official Bets. The Official Bets page is every single bet we have placed. They are completely separate from the picks, and the Official Bets page had all of these bets here, and this is how it worked out. Hopefully that helps a lot of the new people. We also have a 30-minute video breaking down all of premium membership because it is such a ridiculous, robust tool, solution, bets, picks. It has everything you could ever need with multiple pages and multiple ways to consume content. That premium membership did pay off. Jacob's bets hits. My bets hit. The safety parlay hit. If you do want to unlock premium membership for the next 4 events, you can do so now. Just go to WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member. It's freaking $10. It's $10. And I just showed you this slide. You paid $10, and this was the return last night. The safety parlay is back on track. The safety parlay overall is the beacon of stability. This sport is volatile. And the most Angelo thing to do would have been a Steve Urseg, Mateusz Gamrot safety parlay. That felt like a very Angelo thing. And I did not do that, thank God. I had 0 bets whatsoever on Urseg. I had 0 bets whatsoever on Gamrot. And that's how I was able to do so well last night. The safety parlay hit. The safety parlay is 13-4 in the last 12 pay-per-views, 8-3 in the last 11 events. It hits at a 72% event win rate. We all know how wild this sport is. To hit at over 70% is absolutely wild. If you do want to unlock the safety parlay, you can do so now. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member. It's $10. You're going to get 2 fight nights, UFC 306. Insane value, guys. You're also going to get DraftKings ownership. These are the ownership numbers from last night, and we crushed. We dominate the competition. If you don't know what DraftKings ownership projections are, this is to use DraftKings Fantasy. This is where you build your fantasy lineup and you compete with other people. These numbers are wildly important, and we have the best ones in the world, and that includes the giant companies like Skotastic and Roto Grinders. You're also going to get the data analyzer. Some of the people here just want to do their own research. Hey, let me see your bets, but I'm going to do my own. And that's awesome because we went ahead and we built a data analyzer from the ground up. This is custom coded. And this is going to give you data for every single fighter on every single card all the way through UFC 308. Then you can go ahead and stack filters, stack data. It'll update this chart live, and then you can export the data or even click on one of those little buttons on the chart, and that will take you to the fight itself. You can go ahead and watch the fights. It is a full tape index. You're also going to get the Prop Hunter, a curated set of data specifically designed to help you find prop bets. You're going to get the line movement tracker. This is going to give you the opening odds, the current odds, the win probability, and the line movement for every fighter on every card. There's a million other things that you get with premium membership that I don't have time to mention. You can unlock all of it right now. WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member at the top. Guys, let's go ahead and break down this card. That was enough recap there. But I did feel like I had to walk through what some of those terms are because the reality is we are growing like a weed. And there's a lot of people I saw in the comments, wait, that math doesn't make any sense. So I'm happy to walk through it and explain how all of that works for you. This is a decent fight night. Is it a great one? No, of course not. I do love this main event. This main event is spectacular. I am absolutely desperate to know how good Caio Borralho is or is not. The rest of this card is just okay. A couple of interesting matchups, a couple of fun matchups, and an absolute hype train prospect in Cong Wang. They have her taking on Victoria Leonardo, and they are trying to set her up for success. And Cong Wang, they're going to have highlight after highlight after highlight of her beating Valentina Shevchenko. She is a professional kickboxer. She made the leap over to MMA. It doesn't take a ton of research. Literally, the first video that pops up when you search her name is her beating Valentina Shevchenko in a kickboxing match. She fights exactly how you would expect a high-level kickboxer to fight. She's got incredible striking, good power, speed. She can defend some takedowns as well. She has not fought a non-stop wrestler yet in MMA, so the whole can defend takedown things is relatively speaking because we just don't know yet until she fights a female Nurmagomedov. She hasn't fought a non-stop wrestler, but she's still not going to because that's not who Victoria Leonardo is. Victoria Leonardo is a jack of all trades. She's not great at anything. She can do everything. She likes to come forward, lots of pressure. She'll try to wrap you up, try to take you down. But again, not nonstop wrestling, just trying to be big, hold you, drag you to the ground kind of stuff. Her BJJ is decent, but she does make up for any of those skill gaps just with pressure and forward movement. She is coming off that loss to Natalia Silva a little over a year ago. Cong is by far the biggest favorite on this card. By far, 8-1 odds. The UFC knows what they're doing with this matchup. We're likely going to get the outcome that they're looking for. Cong should come in, be light years ahead of Victoria in the striking, and then win this fight, potentially by stoppage. And honestly, if we get a 2.5 round line, I might hit the under. Very, very slightly hit the under because lady unders are not, those are not few and far between. Cong Wang is going to be the pick. There is no money to be made on her. Do not bet her money line. You can't do it. The odds are too far gone, and she is still an untested UFC debut. Look at everybody that bet on Stuart Nickel. Again, picks are not bets. I said, I think Stuart Nickel wins this fight because of the wrestling. But I'm not betting on a UFC debut at these odds. That's crazy. Ricardo Ramos is good. Ricardo Ramos won that fight. I think Cong Wang wins this fight. She's the much better striker. But when I have 0 bets on Cong Wang and Cong Wang loses, I don't need a bro picked Wang comment because that's insane to do. Cong Wang should win this fight. The only bet I would consider is the under 2.5 if we get a juiced over 2.5. Then we have Josiane Nunes taking on Jacqueline Cavalcanti. On a 10-fight card, 3 of them are women's MMA fights. 30% of this card are lady fights. And sometimes there's a lot of money to be made in these fights because we do get weird round lines. Or we get the most obvious round lines in the world. Just hit the over and bang. There you go. But we got Josiane Nunes, the human embodiment of a bowling ball. Short, round, solid as shit. That's what she is. She can be a powerful striker. She throws very, very hard. She's not a great grappler at all, but her striking is solid. It is busy. She likes to come forward. She'll blast some leg kicks and then just bomb overhands like this. Like looking like if Pac-Man had arms and just ran like this. That's how she fights. Ba-boom, ba-boom, just winging overhands. She's compact, shorter than most of the division, but has no problem closing the distance. She doesn't have issues struggling with that range. She can be wild. She gets hit very hard. She hits other people very hard. She's coming off that decision loss to a real-life Sasquatch where she walked forward through haymakers without a care in the world, but ultimately, you're not going to beat a Sasquatch walking forward and throwing haymakers. She's taking on Jacqueline Cavalcanti. Jacqueline Cavalcanti is a long striker. She uses footwork. She uses feints, and she manages range pretty well. She does a good job working your legs and then walking you down, working up to your head. She keeps her striking technical, and when she does find a rhythm, she works forward, pressures, and will even look for the occasional takedown. When she is moving forward, she can be effective, but she does not back up well. She's definitely a striker, but she won't shy away from cage control, maybe a trip or two if she can. She's coming off a win on her UFC debut over Zara Farron, where she hated the forward pressure. Jacqueline is almost a 2-1 favorite here. And I imagine that is all recency bias. I think it's much closer than that, and I'm actually picking the underdog. I'm going with Josiane Nunes here. Jacqueline hasn't fought in a year, and when she did fight, she was losing exchanges to a 40-year-old because she doesn't like pressure. Josiane Nunes only knows how to walk forward. There is no reverse. Her legs only move in that direction. She's literally afraid of nothing. She just moves forward, bombs away, and that's it. Is she good? Not really. Is she technical? Of course not. Is she as hard as a bowling ball and just hits? Yes, she does. And she lost her last fight because a giant held her against the cage. She was fee-fi-fo-fummed against the cage in a takedown or two. I don't see that happening here. And luckily for us, the odds are so wide that a plus 3.5 might be the way to go. That plus 3.5 bet is the same bet I placed on Dan Hooker. We didn't need Dan Hooker to win the fight. We just needed him to win 1 round. We don't need Josiane Nunes to win the fight. We just need her to win 1 round, and I think we will get that. Those props haven't dropped yet, typically Monday, Tuesday morning sometimes. When that drops, I will let you know. If you're a premium member, link to Discord for the alerts, but everything is on the website. Every week I'll get a message, hey, I became a premium member. I don't see everything in the Discord. Well, first you have to link your account. Second, the Discord is just an additional perk. It's not premium. Premium membership is the website. We have spent a ton of money, a ton of time, and a ton of effort, thanks to Josh, the web guy, building out an incredible website with all the tools and all of that. So, point being, if you're a premium member, go to account, click link Discord, and then you can get alerts on your phone when a bet is placed. But if you don't have that, it's okay. All the bets will be on the website, and that plus 3.5 will be there as well once that drops, as long as those odds are reasonable. Then we have Viacheslav Borshchev taking on James Llontop. Viacheslav Borshchev, Slava Claus, we'll call him Slava from here on out, is a fantastic striker. He's got a legitimate professional kickboxing career in his back pocket, and then he transitioned to MMA. He's got a great jab, solid power, good kicks. A very low 36% takedown defense, and he has been taken down 29 times in 7 UFC fights. And that's because he's such a good striker. People are like, F this, I'm shooting some takedowns. He is coming off the destruction by Jace Hooper. And I said Jace instead of Chase Hooper, where he was dropped and then smoked on the ground. Dropped is the key word, because while a lot of people thought Chase could win this fight, not me, nobody thought Chase would outstrike the guy. And he's taking on James Llontop. James Llontop not only has an eyebrow tattoo, but he is also a well-rounded guy. He's got solid striking, good combinations, good body work. He doesn't look for offensive takedowns, but if he is taken down, he's got solid grappling, a great get-up game. He has power in his hands, plenty of cardio, so no need to worry that he is KO or bust. Overall, he's a dangerous striker who can keep fights standing and avoid danger on the ground. He's coming off that submission loss to Chris Padilla in his UFC debut where he was caught in a choke on his way up after a takedown. Whether you think Slava tapped or not in that fight with Chase Hooper, because that was a bit of a question there, it doesn't matter. It was a terrible look either way. If he was taken down and submitted, then nobody thinks twice. It's no big deal. We move on with our lives. But to get dropped by Chase Hooper, he got dropped by somebody's nerdy little brother. Dropped. That is just a bad look. That is crazy. And I'm not trying to disrespect Chase Hooper. Obviously, he's working hard. He's putting things in his pocket. He's getting better. But if you showed a picture of these two next to each other and their accomplishments, grappling nerd, can grapple, has a haircut like a 12-year-old, and then nasty kickboxer, coaches kickboxing at one of the better MMA gyms, accomplished kickboxer, and then you say this one dropped this one, nobody would believe it. But that is what happened. So now I have concerns about Viacheslav's chin. And they're real concerns. James could make something happen. James doesn't have that insane power, though. Not Chase Hooper certainly doesn't either. But I am going to slightly lean Viacheslav Borshchev here because, honestly, he's the better striker. He is just the better striker. Whether his chin is 100% or not, he's the more technical, better striker, and this should be a striking matchup. Viacheslav Borshchev is going to be the pick. James could absolutely win this fight. And honestly, the bet is going to be James Llontop wins inside the distance, decision, no action. Let me recap what I just said. Viacheslav is the pick. But as we discussed earlier, picks and bets are not the same thing. The bet, when it drops, is going to be on James Llontop to win inside the distance, decision, no action. And basically what that means is if James Llontop does exploit the maybe questionable chin of Viacheslav and drops him and finishes him, then we'll get paid, hopefully at plus money. But if James loses a decision, which is the most likely outcome here, then we get a full refund. It's like that bet never happened. So we got to wait for the odds, obviously, but that is what I am looking for because James is tough. I think he can survive whatever forward pressure striking comes his way. And if there is a finish, it could be on the James side because Viacheslav's been a bit chinny. Then we have Zach Reese taking on Jose Medina. Before I break down this fight, very quick, Zach Reese is the reason I learned a valuable lesson from Zach Reese. He's the reason I no longer bet big on UFC debuts, if at all. He's the reason you will never see a UFC debut in a safety parlay again. And that's because I had him in a safety parlay against Cody Brundage. And if you remember, this was winless Cody Brundage. This was Cody Brundage who was just scraping by, barely. And Zach Reese was supposed to be that guy. And then Zach Reese got Cody Brundage in a triangle, and he was power bombed and put unconscious. And ultimately, what are you going to do? The guy got power bombed. But it was also a stark reminder, you can't trust these UFC debuts. You just can't trust them. You can't. They've never been in that situation. They've never fought for the largest promotion on planet Earth. We've never seen them against actual decent competition. So you can't trust UFC debuts. With that being said, I'm about to pick a non-UFC debut in Zach Reese. He won me over. But let's talk about the fight. We got Jose Medina. Jose Medina is a ground and pound fighter. He's got decent striking. He is very dangerous on top. He's almost a throwback to the days of Mark Coleman, but without the high-level wrestling or the headbutts. His striking is clean. His boxing is nothing too crazy, but he's not powerful at all. He's just not powerful or fast. But his hands are in the right places at the right times. He keeps things nice and tight. His takedowns are also just okay, but when he ends up on top, he does an awesome job maintaining positions and just doling out damage. He's coming off a decision loss on the Contender Series where he just could not defend the takedowns. He's taking on Zach Reese. We'll call him Zachary. He's earned that level of respect, thank God. Zachary Reese. Massive guy for middleweight. He is 6'4" at this weight class, and he uses that size, he uses that strength in his fights. He's a well-rounded guy, mostly a powerful striker who just absolutely uncorks. He does seem stiff at times and tightly wound, but he throws hard and technical. He doesn't initiate a lot of takedowns, but he does use takedown defense to end up on top. On the ground, he's got great BJJ. Could turn into a little bit of a jiu-jitsu nerd, but the jiu-jitsu is there. He's coming off that KO win over Julian Marquez, where he needed only 20 seconds to get into the win column. And Zach Reese should win here. He has burned us in the past, as I mentioned, but obviously that one time that he burned us, the dude was power bombed. So I can't really complain about the fact that he was knocked out. I can complain, however, that he was in that situation to begin with. He was just being a jiu-jitsu nerd, throwing up a triangle. No effort to stand up. Why are you not trying to stand up? Scramble to your feet. It's not 1996. Scramble back to your feet. So he does play that jiu-jitsu nerd game. And if he does that in this fight against Jose Medina, that's a problem. Because Jose Medina will rain down elbows. I opened it by saying he is a ground and pound fighter. I didn't say he's a come forward striker. I didn't say he's a wrestler. I didn't say a well-rounded. I said ground and pound fighter because that's what he does. Moves forward. If he can get his own takedowns, works on your face. Zach Reese is going to be the pick. I think he's the better fighter. But we're going to see. No way I lose 2 bets in 1 calendar year on this guy. Not happening. Then we have Dennis Buzukja taking on Danny Silva. This is another interesting fight on this card because there's a lot of fights where the odds are very wide. And we've talked about it. The Apex cards are just upset central. We got Dennis Buzukja. He's a come-forward striker. He's got solid wrestling, and he's got some guts. He's very tough. He's got clean striking technique with power, and then aggressive takedowns to round him out. He stays busy on the feet, and he is fast enough to hang, but he doesn't threaten the wrestling as much as he should, considering how good of a wrestler he is. He's coming off his first UFC win over Connor Matthews, where he showcased some scrambling skills and power. He's taking on Danny Silva. Danny Silva is a striker with clean technique and plenty of movement. He likes to invest in the body early for a late payoff. He doesn't have much in the way of offensive wrestling, but he does have decent takedown defense and a good get-up game. He's not amazing at anything, but he's a solid striker. He can wear you down and take a decision. He's coming off that close win over Josh Cooleybow, where he dropped him instantly, but ultimately was hit a ton. You can see that striking differential. Wow, this guy lands 8.3 significant strikes per minute. That's incredible. Oh, he's hit with 9.47. Yikes. That's a sketchy stat. And listen, I mentioned these Apex cards end up being the ones with the wild upsets, weird performances, landmines everywhere on these Apex cards. Danny Silva being minus 240 just screams a landmine to me. Screams it. He's good for sure, but he's not great. Dennis is 1-2 in the UFC, but those 2 losses are quality. His win was pretty dominant. If Dennis wrestled more, he would be a very real threat. Unfortunately, he does not, which means he probably gets out-techniqued here. Danny is going to be a very low confidence pick. But this is a fight where I will tell you to check out the artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence on the website somehow has a knack for picking some of these tremendous underdogs. I don't know how or why. Years ago, it picked against Garam when he got knocked out. Just last week, it picked Kazama in that upset. And yeah, it's just a computer looking at historical data and making a pick. There's not, there's literal science behind it, but there's nothing crazy. But somehow the big upsets, the crazy ones, the landmines, it does seem to find. So I am going to pick Danny Silva only because Dennis Buzukja doesn't wrestle as much as he should. But if he does show up and wrestle, we'll see what happens. And quick off-topic tangent. If you don't like it, skip ahead. We have chapters in the video because I hate seeing this video was too long. Dude, watch some guy with Tapology on the background. There's literally thousands of them on YouTube. And I promise you they will get to the point faster than I will. Go watch one. Go support them. They take all that time and effort into pulling up a website and then just reading what's on the screen. That's not easy. I got custom graphics, guys. Come on. Anyway, the tangent I'm about to go on, I started it off by saying Dennis Buzukja if he wrestled more. And what I'm about to say is he probably won't, though, because there seems to be influence from the UFC telling fighters not to wrestle. I don't know where. I don't know who. And I don't know how widespread it is, but Muhammad Mokaev said that the UFC told him, stop wrestling, you're boring, we're not going to re-sign you if you keep wrestling. I do know that Carl Williams' camp came out after his bizarre performance and said they told him not to wrestle. They told him to be more exciting. We just watched Gamrot wrestle a little bit, but maybe 30% of how much he normally wrestles. So all of a sudden we have wrestlers that are not wrestling anymore, and they're coming out publicly saying the UFC told me not to wrestle. Couple of things there. One, that is literally messing with the outcomes. That has to be illegal. If there are actual conversations saying if you wrestle, we're not going to re-sign you, that has to be illegal. You're meddling in a professional sport. You're meddling with the outcomes. It is your job to do the matchups and to promote the fights. You can't tell the fighters how to fight. If you want to cut them because they're boring, by all means, cut them because they're boring. But I feel like, and I am not a lawyer or a cop. Everybody thinks I'm a cop. I'm not a cop. But it feels like if you're telling fighters how to fight, and you're telling them not to do their best thing, which then causes them to lose, it feels sketchy. Full circle, point being, I want Dennis Buzukja to wrestle more, but we are in an UFC era where wrestling gets you in trouble. So I don't know if he will, and that's why Danny Silva's the pick. And before we move on to the main card, let me give you $50. Go to WeWantPicks.com/bets. We have affiliate links. You use the affiliate link. You sign up, you make a deposit, and then we send you $50. They're going to pay us. I'm going to slice off some of that money and give it right back to you. It's very, very simple. WeWantPicks.com/bets. Use the affiliate link. Make an account. We'll send you the $50. And if you want to use the $50 to become a premium membership, I promise you, it'll pay for itself. The safety parlay absolutely dominates. And yeah, there's some highs and lows. There's peaks and valleys. This is sports betting on the most volatile sport you could possibly bet on. And it still is the beacon of stability at a 72% event win rate, a 25% lifetime ROI. We are 8-3 in the last 11 events, 13-4 in the last 12 pay-per-views. And my math is correct because some of these events we do more than one safety parlay. If you do want to unlock the parlay, the picks, the bets, the tools, the artificial intelligence, it's only $10 for a freaking month. Right off the top of my head, you're going to get 2 fight nights and UFC 306, which is the Sphere card, the Noche card. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. We only have 5 fights on the main card. There will be 6. This is the first half of the Ultimate Fighter finale. There will be another Ultimate Fighter finale fight. And full disclosure, I don't watch the Ultimate Fighter. This is the finale, so I had to go back. I had to watch the fights themselves. I had to pull up ESPN Plus. I actually used our data analyzer, one of our tools, to find the tape and watch the fights. I don't know any of the drama. I don't know the narratives. I don't know the plot that took place in the house because I didn't watch the show. I just watched the fight. So if I missed something important, plot-wise, let me know in the comments, genuinely. But we're just going to talk about these fights and their fighter skills. Nope. These fighters and their fighting skills. We got Ryan Loder taking on Robert Valentin. Ryan Loder, cautious wrestler. He walks forward, gauging distance, all slow and boring. He gets you to back up, and then he goes all in on the wrestling. He doesn't throw a ton of strikes offensively, but what he will do is plot forward and wait for you to commit to something. And as soon as you do, he'll rush forward, he'll shoot an actual takedown, or try to push you against the cage and then work. On the ground, he's got very, very good control on top, not really looking to finish. Robert Valentin is a creative striker. He plots forward with low hands and plenty of spinning techniques. He has powerful hands, a willingness to exchange, but he is also very hittable. He doesn't go to his takedowns often, but he does have them in his back pocket. In fact, a takedown is what saved him on that Ultimate Fighter to get into this fight. He was cracked, he was wobbled, and then he threw a head kick that was quickly turned into a key lock with his leg and a takedown. It was wild, and he was able to get that finish. Ryan Loder is boring as hell. Unbelievably boring. A wrestler who doesn't strike. He doesn't work on the ground. He does not have fancy takedowns. And I'm sure the UFC is praying that Valentin wins this fight. The problem is, Ryan is good. He's very good at being boring. He's excellent at making sure nothing exciting happens. And he can win the minutes of a fight. He honestly probably wins this fight because as soon as Valentin throws one of his many spinning attacks, Loder is likely going to drop and shoot. Loder is the pick, but I am happy to be wrong here. That style is why the Ultimate Fighter sucks. People like Ryan Loder are literally destroying the Ultimate Fighter viewership. That fight sucked. The guy wrestles, fine, I'm a lifelong wrestler here. I love wrestlers, but they're not exciting wrestling. He's not picking people up. He's not doing, they're boring takedowns, and then his control is impeccable, and he doesn't work on top. And a fight like that in the actual UFC, you have 3 commentators talking about there's something to listen to while you're being bored to death with the fight. But on the Ultimate Fighter, there are no commentators. It is a silent gym, and all you hear is foot squeaks, like That's it. That's what you hear. So you're watching a wet blanket do wet blanket things for 15 minutes. Dude, that is why I stopped watching The Ultimate Fighter. It's boring as shit. Sorry, Ryan, but damn, dude. I get it. And I get it, because if you're on the other side and you're Ryan, it's like, dude, I don't give a shit. Well, I'm trying to change my life. I'm trying to win a contract. You think I care what some slob says on the internet? I wouldn't either if I were you. So fine, we agree. You're boring, but you won the fight. Good for you. Hey, congratulations. Then we have Michael Morales taking on Neil Magny. I'm a big Michael Morales guy, so expect a pretty biased breakdown here. But I don't think many will disagree with me. We got Michael Morales. This guy's an absolute killer. His resume is impeccable. He has an insane resume. He's a freestyle wrestling national champion in his country, a Muay Thai national champion in his country. He's got fantastic footwork, a great jab, nice loose boxing stance, and that allows him to work in and out pretty well. His takedowns are clean. They're more throws and trips than just traditional, let me shoot a double leg. He's coming off that decision win over Jake Matthews, where he was not as dominant as people thought he was going to be, but he did ultimately get the job done to remain undefeated. He's taking on Neil Magny. Neil Magny is about 275 years younger than he looks. Neil Magny looks like the oldest person in your neighborhood, but he's not that old. He's not young, but he's not as old as his face may have you thinking. He is incredibly well-rounded, though. He's a good, well-rounded fighter. He's a guy that seems to be UFC's go-to when it's like, all right, let's give this aging vet another aging vet. Or let's give this young prospect a tough, older veteran to see how good he is or is not. Neil Magny is skilled everywhere, but mostly a busy come-forward striker. He does have very solid grappling as well. He averages a little more than 2 takedowns per fight. He is 22-10 in the UFC, and he fought a who's who of the division. He's coming off that wild come-from-behind victory over Mike Malott, where he was just getting ragdolled before a very late third-round rally. Very late third-round rally. And there's the veteran set. That's the veteran in somebody like Neil Magny. He's not going to quit. He's no Herbert Burns. Just quitting. Neil Magny will never quit. But he is older. He is slower. And he is a 6-1 underdog here, and honestly, he probably should be. Of course, Magny shocked the world with that late come-from-behind victory, but you have to be losing to come from behind. I think Morales is better than Magny literally everywhere. Literally everywhere. I can't think of a single aspect in MMA where Neil Magny is better. And I think he wins this with accurate striking and good old-fashioned takedowns. So Michael Morales, going to be the pick. Then we have Edmen Shahbazyan taking on Gerald Meerschaert. This originally was the co-main event, and obviously not officially, but just the way the fights were listed, the way they were sorted, this was the co-main event. And I was like, that's kind of a trash co-main event, especially when we have Angelo Hill taking on Tabatha Ricci. And I know a lot of you hate women's MMA, but that is the actual co-main event here, thankfully, and it always should have been. But we got Edmen Shahbazyan taking on Gerald Meerschaert. Edmen Shahbazyan's a very good striker. We have a clash of styles in this matchup. He's well-rounded enough. He's got impressive kicks. He does get taken down, though, a good amount. And that's because he is long and he plants his feet before throwing. His takedown defense is okay at 63%. But if he is taken down, he ends up in trouble because he can't scramble very well. He can't get back to his feet, and he can't threaten a submission. He's got solid offensive wrestling, though. He's getting a little more than 2 takedowns per fight. He's coming off that TKO loss to Anthony Hernandez, where he was taken down 6 times before being stopped in the 3rd. He's taking on Gerald Meerschaert. Gerald Meerschaert's a very good grappler. He's always live for a submission. He is not great on the feet, and people have questioned his chin, but he is tough. He will not quit on himself. Whether his chin gives up or not is a different story, but he will not quit. He will never make the conscious decision to say, I'm out of here. He's no Herbert Burns. He is incredibly talented on the ground, but like so many others, he doesn't really have the wrestling offense to get it there. Certainly not as good as it should be given the credentials. He averages a little over 2 takedowns per fight. He has a very low 37% takedown accuracy. He is coming off the submission win over Bryan Barberena that ultimately punched his ticket out of the UFC. And we talked about it earlier in this breakdown. The Apex cards are wild for upsets, just ripe for some nice upsets to blow up your betting slips. Apex has a tendency to make odds look crazy. Edmen Shahbazyan as a 3-1 favorite is crazy. I know how chinny Gerald Meerschaert can be, but his wrestling is also the best it ever looked in his last fight. And of course, he just fought Bryan Barberena. And there's a giant difference between Bryan Barberena and Edmen Shahbazyan. I get that. Edmen is dangerous, but Gerald has been durable in his last couple of fights. He cleaned up the takedowns, at least seemingly. So I'm going to shoot my shot. I'm pissing. Wow. Pissing? That was a Freudian slip. That's my body being like, you better not say. Gerald Meerschaert's name better not come out of your mouth. That guy has a pedo stash and is chinny. But it is, I'm picking him. Gerald Meerschaert is going to be the pick. And this is another great plus 3.5 bet spot. This could go to a decision. And maybe that's a terrible bet. We'll see what the odds are because Edmen could finish Gerald. Gerald could finish Edmen on the ground. We just watched Edmen get finished. Plus 3.5 covers Gerald in the win column if he finishes. It doesn't cover if he gets finished. But honestly, I think Gerald can get his takedowns look great against Bryan Barberena. And I get it. It's Bryan Barberena. But all he needs to do is take Edmen down. And Edmen's going to be in a little bit of trouble. Obviously, his chin is a mess. And that's what makes these fights so good. We don't know what's going to happen until we watch the fight. But I am going to pick Gerald Meerschaert as an underdog. Not the greatest of confidence, but I do think he can get it done. And then we have the co-main event of the evening. We have Angelo Hill taking on Tabatha Ricci. Angelo Hill, tried and true vet who is just finding wild success lately. She's 39 years old, and she is 4-1 in her last 5. She has been having more success in this latest run than she has had pretty much in any other chunk of her career. She found her rhythm at the ripe old age of 39. She's a high IQ veteran. She's mostly a striker. She's got some speed, some volume, lots of versatility, zero power at all. But she is a talented fighter. She's become a gatekeeper for the division, a measuring stick for this weight class. Good everywhere, not really a threat. Her path to victory in pretty much every single fight is stick, move, avoid takedowns, avoid power, exploit rookie mistakes. She's coming off that submission win over Lana Pereiro that absolutely blew up the safety parlay. R.I.P. She's taking on Tabatha Ricci. Tabatha Ricci is a very good grappler. She takes her time, she settles into position, and then she'll look for submissions. She's very heavy on top. She's got good pressure, good control. She will ground and pound while on top as well, which will create scrambles and opens her opponents up for submissions. Her striking is improving, but it's not great. She's coming off the contender or the controversial win over Tisha Pennington, where she's trying to make a name for herself as a contender in the UFC. But she did go 1-10 in takedown attempts. 1 for 10. I'm pausing. That is horrific. And she was outstruck 80-54. A lot of people think she lost that fight, and I get it. She only got 1 single takedown and was completely outstruck in the significant strike department. What she did have is a shit ton of cage control because she was strong and she could bully a Tisha Pennington who was coming back after a long layoff after having a child. Angelo Hill is going to be a little trickier to do that too. And this is a tough pick. Tabatha is in incredible shape. Every single video she's ever posted is not her working technique. It's her doing crazy obstacle courses because she is in such ridiculous shape. She doesn't slow down in fights. She'll attempt as many takedowns as she needs to. That's how she won her last fight. She certainly wasn't the better striker. She wasn't the better wrestler. She went 1 for 10 on takedowns, but the judges loved the forward pressure, and they gave her a close one. That is exactly the same thing that could happen here. Judges see the pressure. They'll give her a decision. But if I'm picking, I have to go with the veteran. Angelo Hill has the length, the cardio, the experience to steal her own decision. Angela is old, but women and heavyweights seem to be able to have longer careers than everybody else. Angela is going to be the pick. The over 2.5 is probably good here. If she burns me on the over 2.5 again, that would be crazy. That would be crazy. You realize that was like her first finish win in 5 years or something absurd like that? So please, for the love of God, I need this over 2.5. And then we have the main event, a very, very good main event. And we're going to learn a lot about Caio Borralho. I don't think we're going to learn much about Jared Cannonier. We know everything we need to know about him in a good way. But Caio Borralho hasn't really fought anybody as big, strong, fast, dangerous as Jared, with the cardio of Jared. And I say big, he's not the tallest guy in the division, but he is thick. Jared Cannonier is very powerful, incredibly dangerous. He'll switch from southpaw to orthodox. He'll throw kicks from both sides. He's got solid grappling defense and a solid chin. He only averages 0.47 takedowns per 15 minutes, but he does have 5 takedowns in his last 2 fights. He's coming off that 4th round TKO loss to Nasruddin Imavov, where a lot of people felt that it was stopped early. But before that, and the performance before that, is the one that has me all inside my head, because when he beat Marvin Vettori, he looked incredible. The best he literally has ever looked, with forward pressure, with volume. He looked insane. That version of Jared Cannonier could literally be a world champion. But I don't know if we're going to get that version. And first, he would have to get through Caio Borralho. Caio Borralho is a very slick grappler. He's got solid submissions, well-timed takedowns. He's got a long stance, very loose on the feet, where he will bounce around and then explode into double legs. He has belts in both judo and jiu-jitsu. You see all of those techniques in fights. Caio is quickly becoming a contender at 185 pounds, but despite how dominant some of these wins are on paper, they are closer than they appear. He's coming off that knockout win over Paul Craig, where his fight IQ was on full display. And yes, he knocked out Paul Craig. Showed the striking. But honestly, his striking was not that good. His hands were low. He's not that fast, but he's just so damn smart. He can make adjustments in fights and not take risks. If he's coming into this fight with that same game plan, the let me strike, not mess around with the ground, he might honestly get slept. But he won't. He's a fighting nerd. He's at that fighting nerd gym. The high IQ is crazy. You can't train the fight IQ. You're just smart. And you know what you're looking at, and you know how to make decisions while in those situations. Caio is going to be the pick. I think this is short notice for both of them. They just announced the event 2 weeks ago. So no idea what that means for cardio. No idea what that's going to mean for the round lines. But Caio is going to be the pick. Last thing I'll mention here. I met Caio. I got a little funny video with him. Caio is bigger than 6'1". He's probably 6'2". He's a big dude, and his head is like a cow's head. Like, he has a massive head. And on one hand, that's a target. On the other hand, it's those giant-headed dudes that are hard to put out. So there's a little knowledge for you. Huh? Where else are you going to go? You think the Tapology guys have knowledge like that? Cowhead? They don't. Guys, that's the breakdown. Become a premium member. It's freaking $10 for an entire month. And I think we've established week in and week out. Go watch the recap videos. Check how well the bets have done long term. Go check out any of the tools on the website. It's $10 a freaking month. What are you going to do? Buy some bozo's Patreon for $20 or even $4, but the bets all miss, so who gives a shit? $10 a month. WeWantPicks.com, click become a member. You're going to get 2 fight nights and UFC 306. You're going to get tools. The greatest tool that has ever been made is the data analyzer. Not only does it have all the data you could ever want or need, but all of these plot points on that graph, those are the videos of the fights. It's a full tape index. No more Googling this person versus that person. You click a button, the video pops up, you watch the video right then and there. You're also going to get the Prop Hunter, a curated set of data specifically designed to help you find prop bets. You're going to get the line movement tracker. This is going to give you the opening odds, the current odds, the win probability, line movement for every fighter in every fight. This card specifically, Tabatha Ricci, opened as a decent favorite, is currently an underdog. You're also going to get the DraftKings Optimizer preloaded with the best DraftKings ownership projections in the game. And you're going to get more than this beautiful face with his cool new shirt, Young LA. I am young, I'm LA cool, and they sent us a whole box of stuff, and I actually love this shirt. Either way, you're going to get Artem, the artificial intelligence. And while Artem might not be a catch if you happen to find him on Grindr, what he is, though, is very good at the non-UFC cards. He's good at UFC as well. But the non-UFC cards, Artem could absolutely crush. He's going to give you the PFL. He's going to give you the Contender Series. Listen, Artem, that was a joke. I know people, that was a joke. Let's all relax. Artem's a great dude. And he's been crushing it. WeWantPicks.com. Click become a member at the top. It is only $10 for an entire month.